Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us here on Money Mentors. I'm Laurel Stewart, joined by my husband, Taylor. And man, I'm really starting to feel fall setting in. Holidays are on my mind. I know everybody's like, Laurel, for real, we know you love Christmas, but not yet. But I feel like we got to get started early. So I'm starting to feel all of that holiday spirit from Halloween coming up to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then it's the New Year. So getting prepped not only when it comes to our household decorations and all the fun things we're doing with our kids and those activities at school, but also your finances. And that's what we're here to do this morning.
Yeah, I was reminded of it this week. Actually, they say this time right now here in early October, if you have holiday travel plans, you really need to be booking right now because the prices for your airfare and everything else, it's not going to get any cheaper from here. So I went ahead and planned all of that out this week. And yeah, it's kind of like reality hitting. Oh, it's time to get on the ball here. So
it is. And because they also have those sneaky things where when people start looking at a certain airfare, right? Then you go away from it and you come back and I swear it goes up. And I'm like, is that because of me? I think it's because of me. So I had to deal with that recently with some travel for business. And I ended up coming back and they said, oh, it's this much now. I was like, literally 2 hours ago when I looked at this, it was $300 cheaper. Can you give me that price? We're like, nope, it's just about popularity. I'm like, come on. So no joke. Look at those and stay committed when you're ready.
Don't look at them too often. You might end up overpaying.
Exactly. Yeah. Go to a different IP address, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, they have their ways these days, so be ready to jump on it when you see a good deal right now. And actually, today here on Money Mentors, we're going to talk about some of those good deals when it comes to your financial life, how to save on things like taxes, how to save on fees, how to get the most out of your investment returns too. We're going to talk about all those different things. But if you have a question for your Money Mentors or you just know that it's, hey, time to get on the calendar now at Matson Financial Services, feel free to reach out to our team at any point during the show at 800-536-8907, or you can always access our calendar online and set up a chat there at matsonfinancial.com. And we certainly have a lot going on right now in the headlines too to watch as we head toward the end of the year. This government shutdown that we're in certainly has grabbed the headlines over the last couple of weeks, but I don't know about you two, but other than, maybe a few friends who work for the government or have contracts with the federal government, I really don't know of anyone who's really miss the government. Do you? It's weird how we've gotten along without them, right?
Yes,
right?
It is weird. Now, we do have an employee, Michael, my paraplanner, who did travel back home to New Jersey to see his family last weekend, and TSA was a problem.
Oh, okay. So there is...
They didn't seem to really care too much. And,
I don't blame
take
them,
that with
really.
a grain of salt because we've all experienced that. But he had some issues at the airport. And I think that, one of the other big things I hear about when it comes to this shutdown is speaking with Medicare, Matt, is Medicare, AEP season, filing for Social Security. It's been slow and it's only getting slower. So if that's something that's on your to-do list this fall, you better get on it now, especially if you're a first-time enrollee, because those times are long.
All right. Yes. Good to know.
And when we look at this historically, since 1976, there have been 22 shutdowns, and they average just 8 days. So it's one of those things where, like, okay, well, when is our 8 days going to be there, right? It's an average. But we say that because when it comes to the markets and things, but the S&P overall does really well still, right? So you talk about markets and things that are happening and wondering how this is going to work with your stocks and your investments, you got to stay committed to that long-term goal still, right? That's what it's about. However, if you don't think you have a long-term goal or a plan in place, this is time to make sure you get one, because then this market noise and everything that's out here, it doesn't matter anymore, right? That's what we're here to do as your fiduciary advisors on your team, is to say, all right, let us hear the noise and handle it and tell you what way to go and what direction from here. But we know when we set up our plans, right, with Matson Financial here, that you're going to weather different storms. It's going to be, this is more of a short term, right, a lighter issue. And there's also the bigger long-term issues when you go into recession or we see COVID years and all of those bigger things that happen. But that's why you have a team of advisors on your side.
That's exactly right. And with our clients, we've planned for this volatility, whether it's the shutdown or who knows what's coming down the road next. We plan for volatility so we can take advantage and be in a position to buy when we see those volatile times. So we're ready for it. It's largely not affecting our clients today. It may in the future, and we're here to help when that time comes.
I think the important thing, too, is I often wonder, and maybe you hear it a lot from all the other different news stations, but why, right? What's the bigger story? What's the why behind the government shutdown? And it comes back to national debt and spending, right? Because those continue to rise. So this could, in the future, mean long-term inflation pressure and higher interest rates. And so how do you make sure that you're positioned in your retirement plan, right? Not just your 401k, those little plans, but your actual retirement plan. Can it weather and handle some of those higher rates and what's going to happen with taxes in the future?
I think that's the other key part is, maybe not right now with the big, beautiful bill getting passed, but down the road, if we don't start addressing the spending and the national debt, there's really only one way to pay for it, and that's going to be through taxes. So at some point,
that can's going to stop getting kicked down the road.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, it's going to get picked up and turned in. So that's something that we also have to make sure that we keep planning for the future. We obviously don't know what the future is going to hold, but we can put things in place so we can take advantage of it when it does and make sure that you're in the best position for you and your plan.
Yeah, that's how I kind of look at it. It seems like Wall Street's kind of mainly shrugged this off, as you were pointing out there, Laurel. A lot of times the market kind of just moves on from this. But the fact that lawmakers keep taking us to the brink of shutdowns year after year, sometimes multiple times in a year.
What are we doing the rest of the year?
And then, again, thinking about the budget, the deficit that we're in. And it's also, one of these things that politicians like to bring up Social Security at times like this is kind of a scare tactic every time there's a disagreement about these big budget issues. But here's a little reality check recently from Andrew Biggs at the American Enterprise Institute. He tells CNBC on this issue.
So this is a major issue that Congress should have handled decades ago when we first became aware that Social Security faced this long-run funding crisis. Unfortunately, it's always easier for politicians to kick the can down the road, to leave the decisions for a future Congress, but that only makes those decisions harder. So I don't fear that we're going to see a 20% benefit cut from Social Security in the near future. Congress will step in to address that.
And it does seem like, they're afraid to touch this program. They like to talk about, addressing it, but they kind of know that baby boomers here are more likely to vote. So it seems like they put off actually doing anything about it.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's a nuclear football, right? It's an easy thing when you're campaigning to throw at the other person. Oh, they're going to cut your Social Security. They're going to cut your Medicare. The reality is nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole, right? So at some point, we're going to have to see some changes made, but I mean, if we look at Washington as a whole, they're really good at doing one thing, and that's spending money, right? And so are they going to rob Peter to pay Paul to make sure that things stay afloat? Probably what I can see coming down the road. They're going to keep it. But ultimately, we can only plan for what we know today and that it's still around. So when we're meeting with clients, we're looking at it as it shouldn't be your sole source of income. It should be a supplement to your overall income plan. And maybe it makes sense to take it a little bit earlier. We could use that income today. We don't know when we're going to leave this earth. So we want to take it today, make sure we start getting our money out of it. And it's a nice little addition to the overall income plan. And sometimes, again, we defer it a little bit. But that's really individualized. And so when we sit down and we go through that comprehensive plan, this is going to be a big part of it. We're going to walk through a couple different income scenarios, whether we take it early or defer till full retirement age or maybe even 70, and see how it affects you and your plan. Because ultimately, we can't control what the government does. I mean, I guess we can by voting, but we all vote every year and look at where we're at, right? So it's something that needs to be addressed, but all we can do is take it on the individual basis. How is it going to affect you and your plan?
And also, this is where we really need to look at this idea of making sure you have layered income strategies, right? Like Taylor had mentioned, it's not just about Social Security, that you can't rely on that, right? That used to be a thing that maybe grandparents could handle, but that's no longer this style of retirement that we're in. So we can build that layered income through your investments, right? What are you saving in your 401ks, things like that. Pensions, they're still out there. We still do see them. There are far less of them. But also, if you need some of that income and that guaranteed piece there are ways to kind of create your own personal pension plan. And we look at that with various individuals and spouses, depending on what's going on with their situation. So an example may be one individual, husband, wife, let's say he does have a pension. However, it is single life, meaning only for him. It is not jointly. So when he passes, now the surviving spouse doesn't receive that income anymore. She loses that income. And also they're going to lose, or she will lose, that deduction. that larger deduction, hers will go down to being smaller. You don't want to change this whole world for a retiree who's also now a widow.
Right.
So we need to make sure we're looking at this in advance to say if something happens, when something happens, we just don't know who is first, that we still have stable income there and providing that. But also we can manage withdrawals to reduce taxation on benefits too. So don't forget to keep that tax piece really as a forward thought in your plan.
Well, with all the uncertainty right now happening in Washington, D.C., I know it's a little bit, unnerving for people who are about to retire, maybe about to claim their Social Security benefits, or, as you mentioned, about to apply for things like Medicare, going through that open enrollment season here. But for our listeners today, we want to help take some of that uncertainty out of it and actually help them get started on that plan. So for our listeners, how can they come in and talk about some of these details with you, go over some of these issues?
Yeah, right. We said you can't control what Congress does with Social Security, but you can control your plan. So let's make sure your income is protected and optimized. So be one of those first 5 callers to call us at Matson Financial today at 800-536-8907 for your complimentary year-end review.
And Gary mentioned it last week. November gets really busy, so we are busy right now trying to get as many of our radio listeners on the calendar as possible here in October. So I encourage you, if you want to go ahead and do that year-end review, if you have some of these decisions that are kind of weighing on you, should I apply for Social Security? I need that Medicare consultation with Matt. Let's go ahead and do that this weekend. Talk to our team off the air right now, 800-536-8907. Or again, you can always schedule that 15-minute getting to know you phone call through our website. You can cover some of those initial questions, matsonfinancial.com. Just click on that Schedule Now button there. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. But next, the blessing and the curse when it comes to getting an inheritance. And what does it really take to be in the top 10 or 20% of wealthy Americans these days? You actually might be one of them. We'll have the numbers for you coming up next as Money Mentors continues right here with Laurel and Taylor on Wood Radio.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
This podcast is for you. So if you have a retirement question you'd like us to address, reach out to us online anytime at matsonfinancial.com. It's something that Gary and Laurel, you've always said here on the show, money makes people funny. And I actually have a friend who's kind of finding this out the hard way right now, too. She was actually the power of attorney for her beloved aunt, who was kind of like a mom to her. And after she recently passed away, all kinds of people have kind of come out of the woodwork volunteering to help with her aunt's estate. And yet, turns out a lot seem like they just want a piece of it in the end, as she's finding out. And I know that you help your clients on the front end try to eliminate some of those headaches for their loved ones. But do you also have conversations with their heirs in advance to try to prepare them for the things that might happen once they receive that inheritance? Because I'm watching what she's going through right now, and I'm thinking, wow, even though, again, her aunt planned, she's still having to deal with, some fallout here.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's also just not something short term. I mean, going through a settling an estate process, even with the help of attorneys, is a long process. Mm-hmm.
Even if everything's in really great shape, it just takes time.
And really, the biggest estate planning issue isn't the paperwork, it's the family dynamics behind everything. And so what we like to do is, obviously, each family that comes to us or each individual that comes to us is very different with their wishes. And they still might want to have a legacy in place. Some want to have that conversation and bring everybody around at the table. We do have those family meetings. I mean, we've got 3 different generations sometimes sitting at the table together. And other times it's, hey, we want to get them involved, but we want you guys to be the ones that are carrying this and talking about it and educating. So great, right? We'll have a meeting with just these individuals to talk about that because, like you said, the family dynamics and the money makes people funny. People say, oh, that will never be my family. My kids will never do that. And they will.
Your kids may not, but it might be the son or daughter-in-law, right?
True.
Or
Yes.
somebody else that's in the family dynamic that just decides to stir the pot a little bit. And they may have great intentions, right? Mm-hmm. But it rubs everybody the wrong way, and now we've got kind of fallout. So I've been in on plenty of these meetings where I sit down with the attorney, with the family and help sort things out, because I feel like a lot of times it's more of a communication issue.
Yes.
There's so much going on. There's so much coming at these family members that are handling the estate, and they don't deal with it every day, so they just don't know. And so it's the communication that really can get lost when we're going through those meetings. And so I found it helpful to be a part of those meetings. Sometimes they're not so much fun to be in, but sometimes they're very, very productive, right? And so having that third party that just says, this is what mom and dad's wishes were, and here's how everything is set up. Here's how we're going to facilitate. Here's kind of the timeline to expect. Here's what we need from you guys. We're going to try to make that as easy as possible for you. Seems to help out quite a lot.
And I mean, it's not fun to say I'm the executor of the power of attorney. It really is not. Like that role, when you select it, when you're drafting your own trust, needs to be somebody that you know can take care of things, who doesn't need to be pushed. It's not your favorite person, maybe, right? But they're the ones who you know can do the job. And that doesn't even mean that they're necessarily receiving the inheritance. They're the ones that are seeing it through, right? So I think this is a part of it too, is just sitting down with our team here, because we have these family dynamics internally, right? My dad, Taylor, my husband, we understand these things, and we've been through it with a lot of our clients being decades in this industry. And so we want to make sure you position it the right way to make sure, parents, you can prepare your heirs before you transfer those assets on, but also then having those heirs understand what is the power of this tool, this money, able to do for my future, or if I have kids and grandkids and things. But also, what are taxes? What are the timelines? What are the responsibilities that are involved? Because some people come to us and they say, I love my daughter-in-law and my son, but I want to make sure that this money follows the bloodline, right? Yeah. So it's not that I don't love my daughter-in-law, but it's going to go right from me to my son. And I want it to go from my son to any of those grandkids, right? It's going to be very specific. Now, that can still take care of daughter-in-law. We're not here to create any of that havoc. But there are certain things that people have wishes on, and we're going to help you see that through.
Yeah. I think one other thing that I've seen in speaking with clients is making sure that whoever handles your estate, in most cases, it's going to be one of the kids, right? Make sure they know who to call and have that introductory meeting. I meet with kids of clients all the time just simply for that introduction. Hey, I want to make sure that you have a relationship with Taylor, that you know who to call in the event of our passing, or, that we're incapacitated in a nursing home. This is the person that you call, and we'll get everything put together, reach out to the attorneys and that type of thing. I've also seen it where the money isn't really the issue. It's a household item. Right? The one child or one grandkid maybe doesn't as much care about the money, but there's this one household item that brings tons of fond memories, and that's what they have an argument about. And
we've seen it about a cutting board.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean,
so it literally could be anything.
Right.
So these are the conversations, especially as we're entering into the holidays, to start thinking about. And there are great ways to have this conversation. And if you're unsure about that, like, this is the time to give us a call and get on the calendar so we can start coaching and helping you walk you through it. But that's something you can talk about, right? As you're hosting Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas, just being like, hey, do I have anything, sentimental, or is there anything in this household, like Taylor was talking about? Is it a watch? Is it a ring? Is it a cutting board? Is it a movie?
Or the casserole dish, the green bean casseroles, and
right?
You're bringing it out.
Is something important to you? And then starting to have that conversation, because it's about the communication, and we're here to help you be that, cog in the wheel to make sure it's all moving in the same direction. And what's even more fun is when we have these conversations with the kids or the grandkids when they come in to say, here's an introduction. We want to make sure this all passes to you appropriately when this time comes. And they then look at Taylor or any of our other advisors and say, you know what? I don't have this type of outlet. I want to have you as my financial advisor too. And we now work with 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, or grandkids, I should say in this case, multiples of these families we have here at Mattson Financial, and that's what's so rewarding.
I love that. And again, we're here to be that resource for you when you're ready to have some of these discussions. I think Laurel's right. Sometimes the holidays bring up some of these conversations naturally. It's a great time. But if you want to take advantage of some of our resources, we're happy to help with that at Mattson Financial Services. Just reach out to our team off the air today. You can do that at 800-536-8907, or drop us a line through the website this weekend. You can find more there too at mattsonfinancial.com. Now, Taylor, Laurel, I think it's sometimes natural to wonder, how do we stack up when it comes to our peers and how well we've done with our own finances? So some new numbers from a report from Yahoo Finance might actually make us feel pretty good about where we stand. They say today's baby boomers with over $2.9 million in net worth are in the top 10% when it comes to wealth today in America. Now, the top 20%, though, is around $1.5 million. We actually hear from a lot of our listeners in that range. The median net worth is around $364,000 to $410,000. That's median net worth.
Wow.
So big differences here in the numbers here between median, 10%, 20%. But I know you've helped people in all these groups with varying numbers retire comfortably and successfully. So how do you do it when people come in with wide-ranging numbers here?
You know what's funny is I just had a meeting first appointment with somebody coming in, getting ready to sell their business. And he asked, how do I stack up to, most Americans? I kind of paused for a second. I actually went to the Google machine because I didn't remember exactly what that number was, but I could give him kind of my thoughts from where our typical clients are and say, you're in a really great position, but let's not focus on the dollar amount. Yeah. We need to focus on the income because that's ultimately that really matters, right? If you've got, in this example, $2.9 million in very illiquid investments and cash flow is really tight, that's a problem, right? And so in that situation with this client, it was looking at that Social Security optimization, looking at the dynamics of that business sale and how to structure that sale. And other things we need to take into consideration too is how old are you? Do we need marketplace insurance pre-Medicare? When are you selling the business? Well, it'd be ideal to sell it the year you turn 62, not 63, because that's going to then bump up your Medicare premium. So there's all of these different dynamics in every single family and every single net worth bracket that comes through the door. And it really comes down to, again, income is the biggest piece. What are your everyday hard expenses? What's your lifestyle? And how do we make it cash flow out? And we're going to come to the table with a bunch of different great resources to discuss that.
I think I want to go over that again because it's too hard to not say, I want to be a millionaire, right? I'm not going to retire until I have $1 million in my 401k. But the honest truth is, it's not about your net worth, okay? I know that might feel good to see it on paper, but it's about income and tax efficiency. And like Taylor's talking about that because you could have that $1 million, that $2 million, but if you don't even have a tax plan in place because your advisor says, yeah, we're invested over here, your returns are really great, all that looks awesome, well, you just gave 5% more, 10% more off the top year over year because you didn't have a tax plan. And then comes age 73 when required minimum distributions, those RMDs kick in. And now if you only have pre-tax dollars being IRAs, 401ks, things like that you have deferred that tax on, now Uncle Sam is saying no more deferral, you have to pay it. And you might not even need that income, but you're forced to take it out. Yes, you can reinvest, but why did we need to pay the tax on it? Yeah. We should have had some proper planning. But if those of you are out there like, oh man, I'm taking RMDs right now, and I don't need that extra money, it's too late for me, it's not, right? These are things that we work on year over year with our clients. I would love for you to sit out there and not bury your head in the sand and say, I don't really want to know. I'm nervous to see how I stack up because I don't think I've saved enough. Basically, I don't want to have shame coming out of that meeting because someone's going to tell me I should have saved X. That's not how our conversations go. Right. So I want you to kind of take that away and say, all right, today can be the day that I can call Matson Financial and get some clarity to see how do I stack up. Sure, you can see your net worth. I know you're still going to want to see that, and you should be proud of that. But let's then focus on what can this nest egg do for you in retirement, because you, while you're working, had the steady paycheck. Now you need to make sure you have that same confidence that there's a paycheck out here for you in retirement.
So for someone out there listening right now who, they want to see what their numbers look like on paper, but they also want to see, what that monthly income looks like and how that translates into retirement success, what that looks like over time. How can they sit down and go over that plan with you?
So if you're wondering where you stand and how to make your plan more tax efficient, let's take a look before year end. You can call Matson Financial today at 800-536-8907. You can be one of those first 5 callers to schedule your complimentary second opinion review.
Again, that number 800-536-8907. You can be one of those callers right now during the break here. Talk to our team off the air, 800-536-8907. And we don't send you to call centers for these conversations. You're talking to one of our actual team members at Matson Financial right here in West Michigan, because we do know that when you're talking about how much you've saved for retirement, what your goals are too, it's a really personal conversation. So that's why we have our team answer the calls here on the weekend. That number 800-536-8907. They'll give you a checklist of those things you might want to bring on that first visit to get the most out of it. 800-536-8907. Or if you're driving right now, just simply remember the website matsonfinancial.com and click that schedule now button when you get a chance this weekend. You can set up your 15-minute phone call, that getting to know you session there too. That's matsonfinancial.com. But next, one group in particular is feeling pretty good about the economy right now. We'll talk about who they are coming up next as Money Mentors continues after the news here on Wood Radio.
You're listening to the Money Mentors podcast.
It's really interesting to look at some of the economic data right now. And there's an interesting trend in the latest consumer sentiment reports from the University of Michigan. In fact, Director of Consumer Surveys Joanne Shu tells Yahoo Finance that despite some uncertainty in things like the labor market and with inflation too, spending and sentiment is actually holding up among one particular group right now. Listen to this.
Those with large stock holdings who are being supported by strong stock values, their sentiment held steady, whereas other consumers saw a decline. And so what we're seeing is robust consumer spending, relatively speaking, being supported by the people who have the resources to do so. But most Americans, they are not confident about the future.
So I'm wondering, from your point of view, is there something to this? Do you find that your clients who do invest in stocks are feeling more confident right now because they're watching their portfolios grow?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's a lot to that. Even in a volatile year like we've seen in this year, I mean, at one point, the S&P was down double digits and now we're up double digits, right? So we're seeing a lot of volatility, but I still think that if we continue to see that growth in the overall market, that sentiment is there. They're still going to go on vacations. And also, you got to figure that they're in those go-go years of retirement, which is, I want to go out, I want to have fun, I want to do these things, all these things that we've dreamed about over the years, and we've saved well, and I've got a good plan in place. And even when we've seen a volatile market, it shouldn't really affect the short term of your plan whatsoever, right? Because we've got your income bucket set up. We've diversified well enough to where we know exactly where that income's coming in from every single month. The stock market isn't necessarily dictating that. Oh, by the way, we've got some extra money in this income bucket, so let's buy that dip in the market. So I totally agree that with the stock market where it's at, that we see a really strong sentiment.
I think we talked about it earlier with the government shutdown too. It seems like Wall Street is more likely these days to just shrug off the bad news after, a few days, a few weeks. You mentioned earlier this year we went through some rocky times, but we got past that too fairly quickly. So I think that's the advantage too of the active management that you have too. You're looking for those trends. Your portfolio managers are looking for those trends so that your clients don't have to sit there and be glued to the day-to-day movements of the markets too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's our job, is to actively adjust portfolios as opportunities arise. And that's what makes us so excited, is when all things are up, every money manager out there is saying the same thing, like, yay, we're doing so great. But what are you doing in times of volatility, right? And that's where we really shine, because we don't say, it's just paper losses, it will come back, right? Stay on hold, stay with what we're doing. No. We're looking for those opportunities. We want to buy low and sell high, and we're not chasing headlines. But I think that's the important part, is no matter what's going on out there with market noise, retirees who stay invested through volatility often benefit when markets rebound. Because also, if you get out in any of these times of volatility and move to cash, when is the appropriate time for you to get back in? That's a very tough question. And we don't have the crystal ball. And that is a place that we don't want to be in either, is timing the market and saying, hey, let's jump in and let's jump out. We put strategies together and different portfolios together for our clients, knowing that this is the diversified approach. Not everything is going to maybe win all the time, but not everything's going to lose, right? And that's why we have balance in place to make sure that these different pieces of your portfolio are tied to your goals, And all of those emotions and things, those are on us to help remove out of your way.
And I think when we sit down and we talk about market volatility, one of the great things about the stock market is it's extremely resilient, right? American business, American consumers are extremely resilient. We're going to adapt and we're going to change our business processes based on what's going on out there. And so the same thing for your plan. We should have a resilient plan. We're going to have some allocation to the market. We need to make sure that we're diversified so we can take advantage of those ups or downs in the market. But we need to make sure that we're looking at the long term, not who's coming into office. Oh my gosh, the government shut down or this or that. All these news headlines are they're really just noise. It's stuff that we need to stay up to speed on, of course, because there will be some things that come down the road. There will be some ramifications of certain elections and whatnot. But if you look at the stock market in general, the odds of being positive are far more in the positive range than they are in the negative range. It's what are you going to do when the market is down? How are you going to take advantage of it and make sure that you've got that long-term plan in place?
Absolutely. And that's the advantage of having that fiduciary advisor team on your side, helping you make those decisions along the way, having that active management on your portfolio. And we're going to tell you more in minutes here about how you can get a second opinion on your investment strategy with your money mentors at Matson Financial Services. But I do think there's something to what Ms. Shu was saying there about consumer sentiment and the people willing to spend right now, because based on Amazon Prime Days this week, it seems like a lot of people out there are still shopping. I will admit I was scrolling for some deals myself, but forget about those deals, though, for a second here, because I want to know what you think are the best deals out there for investors right now who want to improve their retirement situation, because you're all about helping people save money where they can when it comes to retirement. Where are the deals for retirement savers right now?
I think the best two are in tax savings and fee reduction.
I was going to say taxes for sure.
Yeah.
Because there are just not enough people out there. I mean, we have individuals who will end up calling in from the radio show or see us on TV and schedule time. Like, I'm really happy with my advisor. I just want that second opinion. And then we get to know them during that first meeting. They get to know us. We get back together for that second meeting. And that's where we show them the plan, like everything that we've worked really hard on to make sure it ties back to their goals, with that eye on taxes, also any type of charitable giving, especially as we're looking into year end, but then inflation and how we're looking at income year over year to make sure that's adjusted and your Social Security adjusted, all of these things. And they sit there and they're like, wow, they are really blown away at the amount of impact that we have on this plan, because it's so much more than just earning interest, right? And doing well in the stocks. I even had a conversation with a radio listener in the past month. They have multi-million dollars when it comes to their portfolio, and they have a CPA, but their CPA is simply doing their tax prep every year, right? Mm-hmm. Their typical 1040, doing their items there. There is no tax plan in place. And that's boggling to me. I'm like, oh my goodness, right? There's so much opportunity of things that we're missing, these little pieces that once you start doing these little things make a huge impact. And keep in mind, when it comes to taxes, it's an ever-changing environment, right? For what we're hearing, what we have to adapt to and make sure we apply to your plans, but it's year over year, right? There's not a one and done. We look at this every year, multiple times a year to make sure we're putting the best strategy in place. And then also when it comes to fee reduction, I mean, you can kind of talk about that, Tay. We saw some 401ks and some different plans recently where there's way more than just an investment management fee, and that is totally eating away at portfolios.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to mutual funds, you're going to have your typical expense ratios, which can vary widely, right? From 0.25% to 1 3/4%. But one that was really eye-opening, I was reviewing a simple IRA plan for actually a friend of mine. When I was reviewing that plan, I started going through all the plan documents and looking at all of his contributions. I'm like, man, what are these giant expenses? Oh, wait, that's a front-load sales commission. 5 3/4% for every contribution he was putting in there. 5 3/4% right off the top, right? And then he was paying 1% to the advisor, and then those mutual funds still had expense ratios. It was baffling to see. And that's something that if you don't know what you're looking at or looking for,
or what that even means,
or what it means, right, it can be very easy to overlook. So that's a big part of the planning process that we're going to do. Outside of the tax planning, we're going to sit down and have a full-on discussion and comparison of your portfolio versus a relative benchmark. How's it done performance-wise? How's it done risk-wise? And let's talk about fees. And if there's a way that we can help save you some money on fees, we're absolutely going to do that. It's, again, about keeping more of that hard-earned money in your pocket.
Oh, man. 5% just on the way in. So
just to buy it.
Oh my gosh.
So
and think about it over compounding over a couple years now, right? And it's one of those things where it is definitely not a conversation. It's like, oh, you should have. No. It's oh man, this is what we found and we can put you into such a better position. Yeah. Let's talk about this. Like, oh, that's so exciting for us.
Yeah.
Well, think about how much of that contribution he's now keeping.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
that he was losing. And, $1,000, it's 50, on 10,000, it's 500, which doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it starts to add up time and time and time again. And you put that contribution in and boom, 5.75% of it's just gone right off the top.
Yeah. So again, from here, now think of what he can do with that additional savings over time. And this is what you do for people every day. I like to think back to my bargain hunting this week. I saved a few bucks here and there, but you save people really thousands of dollars when you go over their plans, give them that second opinion. So I want to give our listeners that chance this weekend here on Money Mentors to do just that, to figure out the things that maybe they're missing in their plans, the fees that they don't know they're paying, or the tax savings that they haven't talked to with their advisor about. So how can they get started on that plan with you as Money Mentors?
Yes, it's all about keeping more of what you've earned, right? That's what it's about for us. So let's find your saving opportunities here before year end. Call Matson Financial today at 800-536-8907. Again, be one of those first 5 callers for a complimentary review at 800-536-8907.
And again, your Money Mentors, they often find those additional ways to save. They can answer your questions, help you identify how to get the most out of what you've worked so hard for over all these years. So do that with us during the break here. Talk to our team, 800-536-8907. Or you can always set up that phone call through our website too at matsonfinancial.com. Just click that Schedule Now button there. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. But next, what you can and cannot control about RMDs. We'll explain that one for you next as Money Mentors continues on Wood Radio.
Getting you not just to, but through retirement. This is the Money Mentors Podcast.
And of course, you can always find out more online too from our team at matsonfinancial.com. If you have a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can always reach out there too. Again, that's matsonfinancial.com. If you're 73 and up, you have until the end of the year to take care of those RMDs, required minimum distributions, but just how much control do you have over these things? Well, Morningstar points out there are some things you can and cannot control to a point. So let's talk about this. First on their list here is timing, and they say actually the control level you have here is minimal. But let's talk about when these actually kick in, because let's say 73, you have your 73rd birthday. And when in that year after 73 do you have to take those RMDs, guys?
You have to take it by April 1st, the year following your 73rd birthday. So let's say you turn 73 today. You technically don't have to take your RMD until April 1st of 2026. But here's the kicker. Now you're into the following year, and you still have to take an RMD, but you have to take that RMD by year end. If you push it till that next year, you may end up having to take 2. Not may. You will have to end up taking 2 that particular year, which in most cases is not advisable. In a particular scenario, I could see where maybe I would recommend that, let's go ahead and push it till next year. Like,
income is going to be drastically different.
You're still working at 73 and you're a higher earner. Well, let's push it till next year because you're going to be in a drastically lower tax bracket, right? But that's about it. So it's important when you start talking about those RMDs, when you're going to take and coming up with that plan, and it's got to be out by December 31st in a typical year.
Good to know here, because again, it's easy to kind of miss this, and a lot of our listeners kind of come to us in their 70s going, oh wait, hold on,
and they've changed every year. I mean, almost every year with what year you're supposed to take it. Was 70 and a half, all of these different things. Now it's 73. Now, if you're already taking it and you're 71 or whatever, right, you don't get to stop and then go to 73. This is just a 73 moving on.
It's based on birth year, yeah.
But it's confusing, right? And also, if you miss it, there's a penalty. They're a little bit nicer about it now. It used to be 50%, but now it's 25% of what you should have paid. You now have to pay as a penalty.
That's still
steep. So you've got the taxes you got to pay, federal and state. You've got the penalty you have to pay. And then, okay, whatever you have left, now you can reinvest back, do some different things. But instead, what if we controlled this conversation and said, here's what a tax bomb would look like. You've got $1 million in a 401k. That's all fully taxable when you hit 73. So how can we control that? Maybe we need to look at some Roth conversions, right? To lower some income years before RMDs start. Also, we can use QCDs. We're going to throw out all of these different acronyms. Those are qualified charitable distributions that will actually satisfy your RMD, and you don't have to pay the tax portion of that.
That was what I was going to actually talk about earlier when you had mentioned RMDs is some ways that we can control it. I've met with plenty of folks that are giving to the church or they're giving to the local pet rescue, you name it. It doesn't really matter what they're giving to as long as it's a qualified 501c3 and they're giving to it and they're taking RMDs in the same token. It's like, well, hold on a second. If you're going to gift $10,000 a year, let's not pay taxes on it first and then give it.
Right.
Let's give it pre-tax to them, count it towards your RMD, and now we're saving you whatever your ordinary income tax rate is on that portion, right? Which if you're at 20%, well, 20% of $10,000 is $2,000. Like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And these aren't things that you should know, right? I mean, my gosh, it's also complicated. But our fiduciary advisors on our team do know these things, right? And we've done this time and time again. This is what drives us. We love this planning opportunity to look at where you're at, what do you have going on, and how can we help you make maybe a few adjustments, but put you into a better place and also help mentor you along the way.
And that's important to point out here because absolutely you do have some control, as they point out here, about the amount of the RMDs. They actually say you have moderate control over this because if you do some of that prior planning, again, you can control how much you take out of different buckets, what you do with those QCDs. You actually can control that piece of it when you get to your 70s. But oftentimes you start that planning well in advance, don't you?
You have to, because once you turn RMD age, besides the QCD, you're pretty much relinquishing control of the amount that you have to take out, right? It's set in stone. This is the amount. It changes every year. But prior to age 73 or 75, that's one huge thing that we're going to work on with you is maybe we should switch our contributions from pre-tax to Roth. Maybe we should look at Roth conversions, and here's why. Maybe we do all of those things, and we still do some QCDs, but ultimately you're still controlling the amount that you need to take. We always talk about when we're going through these plans is when we're going through income reports and I'm showing this big overage to a client, I'm saying this is your RMD, and this is why we need to look at things like Roth conversions, things like contributing to those Roth accounts right now, or maybe just saving some money into an after-tax account too, because we're going to need some additional liquidity down the road. That's what we're here to build out with those clients, so you don't have to worry about it. Let's make sure that you're in control of your RMD, because ultimately that means that you're in control of your taxes, and if you're not, somebody else is.
Well, that's the thing too, is we've actually had an individual come to us and they said, you know what, I'm just getting a second opinion. I truly feel fine. Honestly, she had a very healthy nest egg and she had low income that she needed. She was like, well, I just want to see what you can do. And after looking at it, she's like, okay, well, you know, we suggested some Roth conversions. And the reason for that is because it was all pre-tax dollars. And even though she was okay, she was not going to outlive her money, right? So technically, yes, she would be fine. But we're always here to look at how does this affect the next generation too, and how can we better your plan? And so as long as you're okay, but if you leave it like this, now your kids or your grandkids are inheriting this tax issue. Yeah. So let's get ahead of that too and say, well, if we do some of these conversions, moving some of this Roth dollar over here, you get compounding interest on that side because you never have to pay taxes on it again. I mean, her net worth went from A to B, a large difference for her. Didn't really impact her, but it impacts what legacy she's leaving behind and how those kids are receiving that inheritance, being tax-free. So huge opportunity because we don't know when you're going to pass,
right,
and also don't know what type of life and what your kids or grandkids are going through at that time. And if they inherit those dollars and don't have any control over it, it's going to push them into higher income limits. Maybe they're going through a divorce, right? And then that just blew up and what you thought was going to stay with the bloodline just went equally to wherever and now to some grandkids that maybe you'll never meet.
Right.
So there's a lot of different factors in place here, but if you can have control over it today, you're making those decisions and you know what this can look like.
Huge for you and your family too. And then finally, the thing they say that you have significant control over when it comes to RMDs is the source. What do you think they mean by that?
I think that they mean two different things. So let's say you've got a $100,000 IRA and your RMD is roughly $4,000. Mm-hmm. Inside of that IRA, you may own U.S. stocks, international stock. You may own a Bitcoin ETF and some bonds and some cash or whatever it is that you own. You can decide which one of those holdings that you want to pull from. Now, you may want to pull equally from all of them, but let's say that this year in the market, we've had a really good run in equities. Your bonds are doing okay, but let's pull that RMD from the growth that we've already seen this year. So let's sell off a portion of the stocks, just enough to cover your RMD. So that's one area that you've got control, right? You can pick and choose which holding as long as you're satisfying that overall RMD amount for that account. The other thing that you would have choices on is where to pull it from. If all of your money is in IRAs, you could have 2 IRAs, 10, 20, 100 different IRA accounts, and you could pull your RMD for all of those from one as long as they're in an IRA. But let's say you're somebody that's got a couple 401ks. We bounced around from shop to shop or company to company. We've got 5 different 401ks out there, and you've never consolidated them to one IRA. You do not have a choice. You have to take an RMD from each individual 401k. Now, keep in mind, some of those 401ks are going to have done better than others, right? They were invested differently, assuming that you never changed the allocation when you left that job. So every 5 or 10 years you left a job and your portfolio gets more and more conservative. If it's in an individual 401k, you have to pull it from that. That's why rolling those over to an IRA in almost every case is going to make the most sense. It gives you the most control over the account and the most control over which position we actually want to liquidate to satisfy the RMD.
It is good to know, though, that you do have some control, at least, over these required minimum distributions. They put that word required in there for a reason. They're the government, after all. Mm-hmm. But how can our listeners sit down with you and go over these different strategies? Because, again, a lot of people get caught off guard by this in their 70s, but this is something that you can plan for. So how can we get started on that?
Yeah, and it's complimentary, right? We offer these meetings complimentary first and foremost because we want to take away any of that burden to say, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if I'm going to like the plan or like them. So let's make it complimentary to make sure you can come in, have this conversation about what are your dreams, your goals, and desires. And we're going to put this written plan together during that second meeting and show you what tweaks we might make. And guys, remember, this is what we do every day by helping families, individuals, business owners here locally. And we want to help you finish the year strong, confident, and prepared for 2026. So be one of those first 5 callers at 800-536-8907 today.
In fact, one of our team members will be standing by for a few minutes after today's show, signing up our final few callers right now off the air. 800-536-8907. Or you can always get out your calendar a little bit later and pull up our website, matsonfinancial.com. Click that Schedule Now button there, and you can match up a time that works with your schedule with ours right there and schedule a 15-minute phone call, a getting to know you chat to go over some of those initial questions with your money mentors. Again, that's matsonfinancial.com. And of course, we invite you back for more lessons next weekend right here with your money mentors.
At Matson Financial, we don't just help you get to retirement, we help you live through it with purpose, confidence, and peace of mind.
Thanks so much for spending your weekend with us, and go Lions.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.